Okay, fantastic. And apparently it's all working. Rod, we can see you, I can hear you and see you. So
Fantastic.
we're in the house that Jack built. So Rod, let me start by having you tell us the story. This is my favorite cricket stadium in England. How was it built? Tell us the story.
Well, it was actually started in 1999 by Hampshire County Cricket Club, as it then was, to build a new county ground for their county. But unfortunately, they ran into some financial difficulties doing the work, and were facing insolvency in 2000. So I picked up the project from there and completed the building of the ground and then the various stands. Then in 2010 or thereabouts, we added a four-star Hilton hotel and an 18-hole golf course, and we now have what everybody knows as the Ageas Bowl. Fantastic place it is.
On top of a hill, how is this site chosen? Why here, Rod?
Well, actually, the site was just happened to be available from Queen's College, Oxford, at the time that Hampshire County Cricket Club was looking to relocate. Their old ground was within the city boundaries of Southampton and quite difficult to get in and out of, and very tired, very small. So it was actually previously a field containing, from memory, one horse and nothing else. And just acres and acres of green fields, and we converted into this.
So if you allow me to tell a little bit of a historical story about this ground. First time I came here was 2002. This is Saurav Ganguly's team, which was touring, and they played Hampshire. And I remember walking into the Indian dressing room, and they were all apprehensive because the ball was flying at all levels. Hampshire agreed to only bowl spinners. All the way from there to 2014 and then 2018, one of the best cricket wickets in this country. Seaman swing the first 2 or 3 days, spin after that. What a journey. Tell us a little bit about that, Rod.
Well, first of all, the match you mentioned in 2002, which was what I should say really, but at the end of the day, it was a great act of friendship between Robin Smith, my captain, and Saurav Ganguly, where I think the intention was just to try and avoid any injury to the Indian players who needed to play another test match. There wasn't so much concern about the Hampshire players that then had to go and face the might of the Indian bowling attack, but they showed fantastic friendship and comradeship at a time that was quite difficult for the Ageas Bowl, so we're eternally grateful to him for that. Since then, of course, we've had a lot of experience on the ground. We've spent a lot of money developing the square, and as you say, we've developed it into what some observers believe is now the best test match wicket in the country. Indeed, India have now played 2 test matches on it. And on both occasions, it has been an excellent wicket. I have to say that England won both test matches.
Been clobbered both times by English spin, Rod. Tell us more about that. Moeen Ali out-bowling Ashwin on a pitch in England. Tell us more about that.
I didn't hear the question.
I'm saying, tell us more about how England won both those test matches with spin.
Yes, in fact, on the first occasion, you may remember that Moeen Ali was picked as a batter who could spin a bit, and ended up taking a fifer and developed then into probably more a spin bowler who could bat as well in the England team. So he found something to purchase here and did very well. And of course, in 18 also, spin played its part. So there's something for all bowlers on this wicket. Certainly up top, we would expect the seamers to get their little bit of help. And as the game progresses, spin will come more into it. And of course, that will favour the Indian team.
So moving to the here and now, Rod, clearly the forecast is dire today, but we have a 6th day. The forecast tomorrow is much, much better. Looks like we're going to get a full day's play. How do you see this pitch behaving? Give our viewers, largely Indian, some crumbs for comfort.
We're always advised against giving indications of how pitches might behave. There's plenty written about how the Ageas Bowl behaves, but this is going to be quite an unusual pitch because we've just come to the end of a bit of a heat wave, and now we've got a deluge of rain. So it may not behave as exactly Ageas Bowl wickets have behaved in the past. But what we do know is that it will be a fair cricket wicket and it will provide something for everybody in the game.
Sunny Galskar was saying that 2 weeks of sun, he's by the way been staying in that lovely Hilton hotel of yours, been gazing at the sun beating down on the wicket all this while. So he's basically been saying that it's actually going to take turn. It's also a 6-day test match now. Yep. So that's an interesting factor too, right?
Well, I mean, I think, who am I to argue with Sonny Gavaskar? I think I'll just take his advice and say he's probably absolutely right.
So, drainage, how would you rank, as and when this rain stops, how would you rank the Ageas Bowl versus other grounds in England from the standpoint of getting ready quickly?
Well, I mean, the first thing is, of course, that it was built to be a cricket ground. So we set out the pitch in an elliptical fashion, so it's slightly higher in the middle than it is at the boundaries, so that the natural gradient is off from the centre to the gullies. We've also had it additionally drained with sand slits all the way around, and that was done around about 2010 from memory. So it drains pretty much as well as any other ground in this country, better than most, I would think. It's being severely challenged right now, and we're going to find out how it dries out later on today and overnight, and hopefully be ready for play tomorrow.
So, Rod, we can come back and talk more about cricket and your predictions, particularly for India versus England. But tell us a little bit about Rod Bransgrove. So, your association with Hampshire County, which was my favourite county because I remember it for Gordon Greenwich, Andy Roberts, back in the old days.
Yeah.
You brought Shane Warne here and many other notable characters. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, in fact, I only moved to Hampshire in 1985. I was actually brought up in London, where I supported Surrey. Then I lived a few years in Singapore and moved back to England into Kent, where I supported Kent. And then I moved here in 1985, and I've become a sort of permanent Hampshire fixture since then. I'm getting to know a lot of the players, and a lot of my very best friends, for instance, Robin Smith, were Hampshire stalwarts, and I just came to love the club. And when we took over, we thought we'd try and bring a bit more glamour to the club, and maybe a bit more will to win as well. So we then hired Shane Warne as our captain. That was actually a deal done in Dubai when Australia were playing Pakistan in test matches. And I flew to Dubai with Robin Smith and Tim Turner. We met Paul Terry there, we wanted Paul Terry as our coach as well. We all met up and we offered Shane the job. Shook hands, there were no agents present. We shook hands and the deal never wavered. And that was the kind of guy that I was dealing with throughout. Very straightforward, good deal. He brought a lot of colour and an amazing talent to this club.
So we've all seen Shane Warne, the bowler, Rod. A lot of people say the finest captain Australia never had. What's your perspective on that?
He was an outstanding captain, partly because, of course, he had him in his team. I mean, it was he's always prepared to set somebody a chase, because he knew that he could call upon himself and turn any game round at any time. Extraordinary player, extraordinary charisma, and a wonderful captain. And it's no surprise that the stand that we're in at the moment is actually named the Shane Warne stand.
Shane Warne stand?
That's the impact he had on the club.
No, that is totally right. And you bought and managed some highly strong top talent to Hampshire. Tell us a little bit about Robin Smith.
Robin is a very, very great friend. Had a wonderful career for England and for Hampshire. He was maybe the last of the truly fully committed club players. At the end of an international match, he was raced back to as long as it's called then, to play county cricket, because he just loved playing Hampshire so much. So absolutely dedicated to county. Now lives in Western Australia, but I stay in touch with him regularly, and his brother, Bristol Smith. He was another very colourful character, and we did have quite a lot of characters at the club. And I think I keep in touch with most of them to this day.
And you've had extraordinary chemistry with all of your captains. I've seen that firsthand, Rod. Quite something. Tell us a little bit about your music career now. Strap for Cash is the name of your band, really?
Well, yes. I mean, yes, it was just a fun name, really. The band doesn't take itself too seriously, and although we've got a fair following in Southampton, we don't sell millions of records a year, although we do sell a few. And we just enjoy playing. We're all getting on a bit, and we've been playing our instruments long enough to know that we should be reasonably good at it. But we have no illusions about fame or glamour. We do the hard yards. Although I must say, we have had the honour on occasions of supporting some great acts like Eric Clapton and Status Quo, and those have been massive highlights for us.
So rockstar at many levels, Rod. All right, so for our largely Indian audience, let's now switch to the India-England series. We've been thrashed twice in a row, Rod. What does 2021 hold?
Well, obviously, this is, as far as we're concerned, a neutral international cricket. It's featuring the two best test-playing nations in the world. Obviously, India being one, and New Zealand may be surprising some people by being the other, but they're rightly there. They've shown tremendous application, and they have this unbelievable ability to create great sides from a population of less than 5 million people. It is remarkable. They challenged England very, very strongly in 2019 in the World Cup final, and I think they'll challenge India in this game as well. Because
Come on, Rod, make a call. How do you see it?
I would say that they'll give India a very good game, because that's what they always do in Test match cricket.
And with the weather having turned favourites?
I don't know how the weather will affect either of the teams, to be honest.
True.
But I think the pitch will still be a fair cricket pitch. It's been covered throughout all of this, obviously.
With overhead conditions, we're going to get ideal swing conditions on all 5 days, it seems.
Yes,
if you believe the forecast.
Although we find here that atmospherics don't play as big a role as they do
Really?
in some areas.
So it's not like Leeds, where atmosphere does everything.
No, obviously the new ball will get a little bit, and maybe later on it reverses a bit. But I don't think bowlers will be able to rely on atmosphere as they would in Leeds.
So 2 spinners, India wins the toss, bats first. Would that be Rod Bransgrove's advice?
I'm going to just go with what Virat Kohli decides.
All right, moving to India versus England. How much heart can India take from the thrashing, if I may call it that, which England received at the Kiwi hands?
I have to hold my hands up and say, England didn't look anywhere near their best in either of those test matches. They were missing a number of key players, but on the other hand, they had some of those players available to select, so they must have felt they were going out with a competitive side. England will need to back up a bit in all departments to combat the strength of this mighty Indian squad.
It's also going to be August, second half of the English summer, conditions much more even, hopefully the sun shining. Well, I can definitely tell you it's been since 2007, 14 long years that we've beaten England in England, and certainly many of us, myself included, have some optimism. And this might be the year where we turn it around.
Well, I think you've got some grounds for optimism, but I've still got I'll still pin my money on Joe Root's boys too.
And a lot of firepower coming back. I mean, let's face it, Joss Butler, Wokes. Would you play Bairstow in the top order?
Well, I'd always play Bairstow. In fact, I'd probably have him as wicket-keeper batsman, because I think that's when he's best.
Over Butler?
I'd still have Butler inside, but either of them can keep it.
Who would have the gloves if both play? If both play, who would have the gloves?
In Test match cricket, I would probably favour Bairstow, and in white ball, I'd give them to Butler.
So both make your side, but Bairstow behind the stumps as keeper.
In Test matches, yes.
Right. Anderson plays all 5 Test matches?
So the good thing about seam bowling is that there do appear to be some options now. And I don't know what happened with Ollie Robinson, but certainly Stone showed that he can bowl as well at edge basket. So they do have some options. And with Archer coming back, I think it might be a bit stronger. It won't rely so much on Anderson.
And Ollie Stone looked very good in India as well. So England's got plenty of depth. Jofra Archer comes back?
I would imagine so, yes. Yeah,
How is he doing?
I haven't followed it. It was an elbow injury, I think. And, he hasn't played at all for Sussex, so he's still out of cricket. So he may not be back immediately, but I would imagine that as soon as he's fit, he would come. He brings a bit of an X factor to us.
Well, Archer and Wood must represent the quickest duo there is. I mean, Archer, Wood, Anderson, Broad is a pretty formidable base attack. It's really the English batting which looks vulnerable.
I agree with you there. Although we need to see what we do about spin bowling, whether Leach comes back to them, or they rely on Lyman route might be dangerous.
Well, if you play Moeen, I mean, you get 2 for 1.
I mean, Moeen has a very good record on this pitch, so I would imagine he would be a bit disappointed not to play.
Indeed. So, Rod, fingers crossed. By the way, for those of you that believe in small crumbs, it has stopped raining. Your drainage does look spectacular, so we're keeping our fingers crossed. Neetu, do we want to bring some of our panelists up to see if they want to ask Rod a question or two?
Absolutely. Actually, there's been a few questions in the chat while you have been...
Why don't you fire away?
Sure. So, Rod, do you have your guitar with you? Izzy Duncan's asking the question if you've carried your guitar with you.
Izzy Duncan wants to know whether you carried your guitar with you and are willing to play in case there's a longer rain delay.
Maybe I should bring it tomorrow. But to be honest with you, when we tour the Caribbean, I always take a guitar with me, and I sit on a boat or on the docks and just strum for relaxation. So, but I try and do it where people can't hear me.
I seem to remember Bumble, David Lloyd, leading an entire stadium chorus of "I Did It My Way" during a rain break. So, Rod, there is an inspiration for you to follow. You know.
There is, yeah. We have actually played here at the Ageas Bowl.
Have you really?
We did a little concert one night after a 2020 match, and I think the members enjoyed that. They enjoy seeing people of their own age having a bit of fun with a guitar.
Rod Bransgrove, Rod Stewart, we can toss a coin. Come on, Neetu, keep going.
Yeah, well, I think people want to have an impromptu jamming session. It appears so. You're very much in demand here, Rod. Much cooler, Izzy thinks, than Drippy Cliff.
So, can you not hear?
No.
Okay, so Izzy thinks that you're much cooler than Drippy Cliff.
Well, here's an anecdote for you. I know Chris Gale a bit over the years, and he came round to my house where I've got a little bar with a stage and some guitars and things. And we messed around there. This is during the World Cup of 2019. And he his hashtag is #1 Universe Boss.
Yes.
He's now given me the hashtag of Rockstar Rod.
That's great. That's amazing. Well, another question, a technical one. How fast does the water drain from the outfield? Is a question for Rod.
How quickly does the water drain from the outfield, bro?
Well, obviously, it always depends on how much there's been and what the atmospherics are like whilst it's drying. There's a lot of water out there, so it's going to take quite some time before this dries away now. I see the plotters have been out, and they'll continue to work as hard as they can to get the water off as quickly as possible. If it stays dry and we get the breeze, I'm sure there could still be some late today, but that really relies on there being no further rain.
Technically, it's not raining right now. So
Yeah.
if you want to be very optimistic, there may still be some prospects. Neetu, next.
Yeah, I think those are. Have you considered the drainage systems you see in football pitches? The other question from Krishna is asking that question.
Sorry, so specifically.
So Krishna specifically asking if you've considered drainage systems that you see in football pitches.
Have you considered drainage from that are used in football pitches? Is it superior?
I don't know the answer to that question, I'm afraid. But what we did put in here was the latest model for cricket pitches, which is using sand out from the centre to the outside, and that together with the elliptical shape of the ground should help us to remove the water as quickly as we can.
Rod, were you not telling me the other day that that Ageas Bowl has a record for the most number of on and off interruptions?
Yes, I mentioned it to you. I tried to look up last night how many it was. But in our first ever test match in 2011 against Sri Lanka, I'm told that we broke the record for the number of times that covers came on and off during one day's play of a test match. The groundsmen were utterly exhausted, which isn't really the case so much today. Because it's been on continuously. The groundsmen have really been busying themselves just trying to take the surface water off.
Gary's asking Rod what your thoughts on the 100 are.
Thoughts on the 100, Rod?
I'm looking forward to it. It's I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, and it's not designed for traditional cricket lovers. It's designed to try and encourage new people into the sport. And as long as the best players are playing it, and it's got big hitting and big catching and everything that the IPL offers, and a bit more, I think.
Rod, from one entrepreneur to another, what has been your experience as an entrepreneur bringing this to sort of cricket administration in Hampshire?
Terrific question. This is actually from our host. She'd like to know from one entrepreneur to another, how much of your entrepreneurial ability did you bring to running Hampshire?
How much business?
Of your entrepreneurial ability.
Well, I never know quite what entrepreneurial ability is. I mean, if it's that you approach things new, so you take a circumstance might have been looked at 100 times by 100 people, but you look at it as new again. You don't take anything for granted. Then yes, I have done that. I've looked at the structure of the game, I've looked at the way we set up our development programs, I've looked at the way I've even tried to change the membership system here. So every aspect of the cricket business we've investigated from new. We are partly tied to the way that the ECB run the game. So there are confines that we have to work within. But I would say, yeah, as long as we keep on, every time we do something, we should be able to say why and then explain why. That's the key to it. And if that's what entrepreneurialism is, then I think it's what I call it.
Well, Rod, I mean, the other thing, of course, which you did, I mean, it was a long slog. The ECB did not support you. When did you get your first international assignment here?
Yeah, we've had a bit of a battle in that respect. It's not straightforward because, of course, the existing test match grounds and international grounds don't really want to lose their fixtures. So, and we are structured differently, because we're privately owned. I think we're regarded a little bit differently to some of the other constituted in a different way.
But you kept the faith, you kept going.
Yeah,
so,
we've done that.
to Neethu's question, having made the investment, not seeing a return, you didn't cash in your chips, you stayed at the table.
Oh, well, I mean, this isn't, despite what anybody may have said or done, this was never intended to be a profit-making project. This was about saving Hampshire Cricket Club, having a bit of fun as well, and maybe developing a business that does pay around that. We've got nearly 200 acres on this site now, and as I said before, we've got a 170-room, 4-star Hilton hotel, an 18-hole golf course, various other facilities there. I think will be a standalone business. So we brought that element of, if you like, profit making to it. But at the moment, it's just subsidising our cricket activities. And if that's all it does until the day I move to the Lords upstairs, then I'll be happy. That would be my job done.
Well, it's quite my favourite ground, Rod. I cannot think of another setting as spectacular as this. An hour and a half drive from Kensington, and here we are in the best of the English countryside. Obviously, on a sunny day, the stadium shows itself off a lot better, but we're on top of a hill. There's no context of a city or anything else, and yet there's a lovely county ground feel to an international stadium. A lot going for it.
In which case, then it's achieving all its objectives, Anshu, and it's always lovely to have you here because you say the nicest things.
No, it's been spectacular. Need to do anything else before we close the session?
Just one thing on to sign off. Ashwini is asking if what's your most your proudest and most memorable day at the Ageas Bowl.
So one of my closer friends is asking the question: what is your proudest, most memorable day at the Ageas Bowl?
I think the greatest moment was winning the 2020 tournament in 2012, I think it was, here at the Ageas Bowl. That was so amazing to win a national trophy on our own ground. Did cause some very, very excessive and late celebrations, which probably fogged some of the memory, but certainly the bits that I remember, that was probably the greatest thing. But every time we stage international cricket, and in particular test match cricket, I feel overwhelmingly proud of the place. And I must add, mainly because of the people that work here, who are, to a man, outstanding people and all absolutely committed to what we do, what we're trying to achieve here. So really the tribute is all to them, because this is just a building. The soul of the building, the heart of the building is provided by the people that work there. And I can't congratulate them enough on what they've done for us here.
Rod, you're being way too modest. There's a saying, if you build it, they will come. You built it, they are here, and now let's just hope that the clouds part and we start to get a really competitive fixture on its way. Thank you very much, everyone.